Good Saturday morning, everyone. Today on Perspectives, let's talk about the 2020 census. Now, you may know, of course, that every 10 years a census is conducted to count every living person in the United States. Federal funding depends on this count and impacts our community through health care, food, education, roads and bridges, senior and child care services as well, even the number of representatives that we have in Congress. By now, officials are hoping that more than 80% of Alabama's citizens would have already filled out the census, but we are far from that goal. And that could cost not only the state money, but other vital agencies that affect you as well. The COVID-19 pandemic, of course, forced the delay of some programs that would have helped to make sure the population was counted. But it's not too late. Now, while you're making a difference staying home during the pandemic, you can also make a difference by filling out your census form.
It happens just once every decade, the counting of every person in the country. The responses or lack of responses during this pandemic could have lasting impacts.
This census will dictate to the state of Alabama and its citizens what will occur from the standpoint of fundings for schools, not only schools, but health care, highway infrastructure.
When you fill out the census form online, by phone, or mail, you will be asked a series of questions, like where you live as of April 1st. So far, nearly 60% of Alabamians have filled out the form. In Mobile County, just 58% though of people have taken the census. In Baldwin County, it's 54%. If they were to use those numbers right now, federal funding would fall way short of our needs because it would be based on a population size much smaller than we really are.
The government needs so that they can actually make sure that the dollars continues to flow into our state and make sure that we continue the quality of life that we're used to.
Taking part in the census is required by law. During the last census in 2010, only 72% of people participated. They're hoping that more will do it this time.
Please, please, don't let it sit on your desk any longer. Go ahead and fill that out so that we can make sure that we are all counted.
And of course, Mayor Sandy Stimpson there and encouraging us all to participate. Now, in case you're wondering, it took me less than 10 minutes to fill out the paper census form. And those who do it online, like my producer Linda, they say it takes no more than 6 minutes. Super simple, right? If you need help, we do have a link for you on our website at fox10tv.com. And joining us today on Perspectives to share about the importance of Census 2020, Mobile County Commissioner Merceria Ludgood and Executive Director of the United Way of Southwest Alabama, Jill Chenoweth. Well, when Perspectives continues this morning, we'll hear from our first guest, Mobile County Commissioner Merceria Ludgood. But first, a short video on why filling out the census is so important.
When you think about our state, what makes it different? What makes it special? What makes it Alabama? It's the people. They're always willing to go above and beyond for one another, to give, to serve, encourage, and help. And this moment is no different. If you're here, you know how important taking the census is, and not just for yourself, but for all of us. Our ability to recruit businesses, federal funding for our schools, community programs, and even healthcare. And most importantly, our government. Our voice in Washington and Montgomery depends on this. So yeah, it's kind of a big deal, but taking it is the easy part. It's 10 questions. It takes 6 minutes or less, and you can take it anywhere. Online, on your smartphone, at work, by mail, or even over the phone. They've made it easy for everyone. Help us make sure that everyone is counted, that every voice matters. Because we're all counting on each other to complete the census. So the real question is, can we count on you?
Joining us this morning, Mobile County Commissioner Merceria Ludgood. We're talking Census 2020. And Commissioner, back on April the 2nd, the goal was 85 by 7-4. That's 85% completion by July the 4th. Please give us an update.
So we missed it. We were a bit optimistic. I'd like to really give a shout out to Satsuma and Saraland, who are going big guns. They're approaching 80% now. They're both in the high 70s. The county response rate is right at 58%.
When you look at those numbers, how is that related to the COVID-19? That has changed a lot of things. In fact, how we're doing our interview right now is a big difference from what we usually have done in the past. How has that affected the return, you believe?
Well, what has happened, a lot of what the Census Bureau had planned to do on the ground and in the communities, they've had to roll their schedules forward. So they haven't been able to do the follow-up. So now they have expanded the self-response date to October 31st instead of July 31st, which was the original date. And they've moved all of the dates forward accordingly, and all really trying to keep their census workers safe and adhering to CDC guidelines about distance and not gathering.
Makes a lot of sense, especially with what we've had spiking here in the last couple of weeks, not just in Mobile County, but of course across the state and across the South. When you look at the reminder for a lot of folks, tell us again why the census is so important to us, because it's only done once every 10 years.
Well, it governs what will be our official population for the federal government. And the reason that's important is because we have a lot of federal funds that come into the state, come into our county, come into our cities, and it's based on what the population is. And that is established every 10 years by the census. And that's the number, that's the magic number. And each year they do some indexing, but the official figure remains that whatever that figure is for 10 years.
And the impacts are on several different areas of the community. Mention a few of those and how that number of the population affects different areas like healthcare and housing and the others.
Well, you know, both the city and the counties receive community development block grant funds. They receive funds from HUD, and with those kinds of funds, they can do senior citizens. They can do services for children. They do services for our homeless populations, first-time home buyers. I mean, it's just a full range of community development projects that we're able to do. It impacts how much we receive from the federal government for education services, for our health care clinics, all of those. Our ability to compete for that is dependent on our census numbers. There are grants that you can get for additional police cars and to pay for additional police salaries. And unless we're able to show that our numbers are holding strong, we don't want to be in a place where we're going to jeopardize and lose any of that funding.
Speaking of congressional representation, that's also one of the areas that this affects.
It does, and I think one of the things that's going to be made more difficult with the extension is that the data will not go to the president now until April 30th of 2021 instead of December, so that's 4 months. And then it won't be back into the states until July 31st of 2021. So things like, for example, the city of Mobile has an election in August of 2021 under a different set of circumstances. Our council members may have been running from different reconfigured districts based on the new census information, but it's highly unlikely that if the census data doesn't come until July 31st, that they won't be able to run from new districts. That is something yet to be determined, but given that timeline and the amount of time it takes to redraw those lines, and you're going to have elections in the state in 2022, and typically those state legislature lines will be drawn, some county commission lines, school board lines, all of those people who will be running in 2022. And then you go back to that fundamental question of, will we have enough people to count to retain all 7 of our seats in the United States Congress? And that's critical. We don't want to lose any representation we have at all.
So who's being counted? Is it just the voting adults, or who's included?
Everyone is counted. from infants to seniors, and it's particularly important to count the infants because as they grow over the next 10 years, they're going to need different services, and we need to be able to anticipate where they're going to be when they're going to be 5 years old, when they're going to be 6 and need pre-K and kindergarten and school. So we need infants. Everyone needs to be counted from the youngest to the eldest.
Now, what about those who are concerned about their privacy? Of course, I don't know how anyone thinks they have privacy anymore, but what about those people who are concerned about their privacy, and that's one of the reasons why they may not have filled out the form yet?
This information is not your name and social security number. That kind of sensitive information is not shared with anyone. We basically need to count. We need to count the households. We need to count the number of people who are in the household, the ages, and sometimes their health status. All of those kinds of things are critical. So the information that is sensitive, that could be taken and abused, that's just not a part of this process.
And of course, we mentioned once again, 10 years is the next time that this will be done, 2030, where it'll be another whole decade of information and changes taking place. Now, what about the computer access that some people had expected to be able to do it on their computers? And of course, libraries are not open and as accessible as they were, as well as some of the other places. Do you think that we'll get there before the October 31 deadline so the people who had planned on doing it like that, they can?
I certainly hope so, because we'd hope to have the libraries and several satellite sites where dedicated computers would be in place where people who did not have them at home might be able to go. You can still use your cell phone and you can still call the 1-800 number.
And of course, it can do a desktop computer, a smartphone today, and of course tablets. Those are all accessible. Can you do it on a friend's unit, or how does that work? If someone has a computer or a laptop or the tablet, can you use someone else's to do it, or do you have to be your own dedicated form?
No, it can be anyone's. You can just go on, because your information is going to be different that you're entering.
All right. Now we're going to take a break, Commissioner. When we come back, we're going to talk to someone who understands the importance of this as it relates to other agencies throughout the county. We'll talk more about Census 2020 in just a moment. We're talking Census 2020 on Perspectives this morning. Our guest, Mobile County Commissioner Merceria Ludgood of District 1. And also joining us now, Jill Chenoweth. She's Executive Director of the United Way of Southwest Alabama. Ladies, thank you both for being a part of the discussion today. Now, Commissioner Ludgood, why would the United Way of Southwest Alabama be concerned about Census 2020?
Well, basically, our entire safety net, for our most vulnerable populations, are really the mission of the United Way of Southwest Alabama. And so they're always looking for the resources, how to leverage the resources, impact them, make sure that they're getting to the right people. So they're our natural partners in all of this. While their funding is mostly private funding, donor funding, occasionally we have opportunities to work with the United Way to deliver many of the services that we get as a result of funds we receive from the census.
And Ms. Chenoweth, of course, thank you for joining us and being a part of this discussion. As the United Way of Southwest Alabama, how do you see this as an effort that you definitely need to be a part of, making sure that people are being counted here in Mobile County?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for having me on today. United Way of Southwest Alabama covers Choctaw, Clark, Mobile, and Washington counties, so we're very concerned about that footprint. And we're already seeing our partner agencies, 47 of them, being stretched and stressed by the COVID virus. So if we do not have the population counted, those monies will not be coming down from the federal government to the state, and then from the state to the counties and to our partner agencies. So they're already stretched and stressed. And so this funding is crucial for them to provide housing and food, education assistance, drug testing, family counseling. So all of those things are vital. We know that Choctaw County, which is one of our counties, was the fastest decreasing county in the state And they blame it on the census 10 years ago because people didn't answer the census. So they really think their population was up, but they received less funding. And right now, Choctaw County is at 52%. And that's crucial. If they do not get that funding, then it's approximately $1,567 per person that will come down. So if they're only counting about half their population, that's half the money that the county will not get.
That's a very good example there. Give us an idea of all the counties that you serve as we sort of pull this into focus about understanding why it's a regional issue here to make sure that we're all being counted.
It is. In Clark County, as of last week, they're at 53.8%. Washington County is not doing well. They're at 43.5%. As Commissioner Ludgood said, 58% for Mobile County. However, the city of Mobile is at 59.8%. We really need to get those numbers up because it will affect everything, as Commissioner Ludgood said, and it will stretch and stress our partner agencies even more as they try to help people through the COVID crisis.
Now talk about some of the agencies that you support, because when we hear partnering agencies, of course, we're thinking about who it might be, but there are some agencies that are serving some very vital needs in the community that without the funding coming through the United Way, they would have some really tough times. Tell us about who some of those are.
Exactly. Penelope House is one of our local partner agencies. As we know, abuse has gone up during COVID crisis. And because families are stressed and they're in closed quarters, children are not getting out of the house, parents aren't going to work. So it will stretch and stress. It has stretched and stressed Penelope House even more. I was speaking with Drug Education Council on the way over here, and one of the staff was having a deluge of people that they were testing for drug abuse. Several parents brought children in to be drug tested. So we know drug abuse and alcohol abuse has increased during the COVID crisis. Salvation Army has seen an influx of people. So we cover large national agencies like Goodwill Easter Seals and United Cerebral Palsy, and then we cover small local agencies like Wilmer Hall and St. Mary's Home Child Daycare Association, and there's 47 in the counties. We have multiple agencies in the counties. We have the Association of Retarded Citizens of Southwest Alabama in Washington County. We have the Clark Association of Retarded Citizens, obviously in Clark County, and many other partner agencies covering our outlying counties. So this funding is crucial. If we're only at half right now, that's half the money that's going to be coming to us in a time that we don't need half the money disappearing from our people and that need services.
That's very understandable, and of course this COVID-19 has changed a lot of things in our area, and as you were saying, we hear about the business community, but many of our nonprofit agencies who provide some vital services. We've had, of course, Penelope House and Drug Education Council on with us several times. What do you and Commissioner Ludgood think it's going to take to get our folks to get that number up to the 85 and higher?
Well, one of the things that has happened is that I think people right now are in survival mode. We're encouraging them to go vote on July 14th, for example, and we just don't know whether or not people are focused on that. And hopefully we'll get to a point in this COVID crisis where people can relax a minute, move out of survival, just trying to make it mode, into a place where they can do the long-term thinking. This is really a long game, and it would be so unfortunate if within this crisis that we hope will be contained in a matter of months, that we lose an opportunity that we feel for 10 years. And so we've just got to keep beating the drum, refocusing people's attention back to getting this done, using every opportunity where people are congregating to carry the message of, it's been extended, you can still do it, we desperately need to do it. The services that you're receiving now, part of which are available because somebody responded 10 years ago. So that's the message we've just got to keep carrying.
And Ms. Chenoweth, what's your opinion on getting folks to get this number up to where it needs to be and higher?
The unfortunate thing is COVID did hit because we had a whole plan, especially with Mobile County we were working, but we were also working in Choctaw, Clark, and Washington counties. And unfortunately, cell service and internet service is sketchy in those counties, and a lot of people do not have access to go online to do this. So we were going to go out to the churches on Sundays and take actual forms for people and help people fill out the forms, and also take computers. And unfortunately, that's been disrupted. And we had recruited volunteers to do these, and so we're going to try to get back on track, especially in our rural counties, so that people who do not have access to their cell phone or to computer, in Choctaw County, I keep picking on poor Choctaw County, but their library has limited services, and they only have one library in the entire county. So it's crucial that we get these numbers up. And so we're going to have to do some grassroots efforts, like going to the churches, going to the food banks in the counties where people pick up their food and having the forms completed there. So that's going to be what we're doing, and getting volunteers to help us do that throughout our 4-county region.
Ladies, we have about 30 seconds. For those who may be watching today that want to help you throughout Mobile County and the Southwest Alabama area, Choctaw and Clark and Washington counties, what should they do to contact you all to make sure that they can give of themselves to help you get this message out there?
Well, they can always call the Mobile County Commission at 574-1000, and they can call the United Way of Southwest Alabama, and no matter where they are, we'll make sure we get them to the right county.
All right. We thank you both so much for talking and sharing this morning. And of course, this is very important information, and it's so sad that COVID-19 hit us in this very crucial year of getting the census information out there and filled out and the forms done. But we thank you for sharing the information this morning. And of course, we'll be running more of the outreach information, how they can take advantage of getting it in the different ways to sign up for the Census 2020. Again, Mobile County Commissioner Merceria Ludgood and Ms. Jill Chenoweth, Executive Director of the United Way of South Alabama. Thanks for joining us on Perspectives.
Thank you.
And of course, we thank both of our guests. Perspectives, meantime, continues after this break. Welcome back to Perspectives, and once again, if you haven't filled out your census form, don't worry, there is still a little time left. Now just go to census.alabama.gov, click the button there to take the census now, and then when that page comes up, click on Start Questionnaire. And if you have your 12-digit census ID that came in the mail to you, type that in. Now, if you don't have it, no problem. You can click on a link, and then you can complete the census online. Or, of course, you can call the Census Bureau toll-free. That number to call, 844-330-2020. And remember, it only takes between 3 and 10 minutes to do the whole thing. If you want to know more about the programs that the Census helps fund in our area, you can also contact Commissioner Merceria Ludgood, as mentioned, through the Mobile County Commission, or Jill Chenoweth at the United Way of Southwest Alabama. You can contact them through the emails and numbers you see here on the screen. Well, don't forget, join us here next Saturday morning at 9 for Perspectives as we discuss important issues and seek solutions. I'm Eric Reynolds. Have a great week.